Sometimes the harsh winds of the frontier whisper truths that men dare not speak aloud. Life in the unforgiving West can wear a soul down to its very bones, leaving only echoes of dreams long abandoned. For Bill, a weathered cowboy with sun-kissed skin and a heart that ached for purpose, that truth was becoming all too clear. Standing at the windswept way station, he felt like a ghost of the man he once was, burdened by debts and decisions that had led him to this desolate stretch of dirt. Beside him, loyal as the stars that scattered across the night sky, was Roger, a German shepherd with a coat like polished ebony and eyes that glimmered with unspoken wisdom. Together, they had weathered storms and faced the biting chill of the night, but tonight, a different kind of chill slithered through the air, curling around Bill's heart like a serpent. It was at the dusty auction earlier that day, where Bill had taken a chance on an old dog, one whose bones creaked with age, but whose spirit burned brightly beneath the surface. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the desert, Roger began to grow restless. Then, amidst the rustling sagebrush, the wind carried with it the faintest sound of voices, soft, pleading, as if the very earth had secrets it longed to share. What started as a simple act of compassion would soon unravel into a mystery that pulled at the fabric of reality itself. Buried beneath the weight of the past lay a key to a fate Bill could scarcely comprehend. Would he and Roger unlock something that should remain hidden, or awaken a darkness best left undisturbed? Now, as you settle in for this tale of shadows and whispers, ask yourself, what secrets lie buried in the heart of the desert? And, dear listener, where are you tuning in from tonight? Make sure to subscribe, for more tales from the frontier await just beyond the horizon. Dust hung in the still evening air like a shroud over the way station, where the sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and lavender. Bill stood beside the weathered wooden rail, his broad-brimmed hat casting a shadow over his rugged features. His dark eyes squinted against the fading light as he surveyed the crumbling building and the parched landscape surrounding it. It had been a long ride, and though he'd seen plenty of scraggly outposts in his day, this one felt different, as if it were holding its breath. Roger, the old German shepherd, stood at his side, ears perked and nostrils flaring. The dog's instincts had never led Bill astray, and tonight the air hummed with an electric tension that prickled at the back of his neck. "What do you reckon, boy?" he muttered, more to himself than to Roger. The dog turned his head slightly, his gaze locked on the distant hills, as if he were reading a story written in the wind. A faint sound fluttered on the breeze, like a whisper just out of reach. Bill furrowed his brow, straining to catch the words that danced through the air. "Did you hear that?" he asked, his voice low and steady. Roger barked softly, the hairs on his back bristling as he took a cautious step forward, leading the way toward the entrance of the way station. Bill followed, his spurs jangling softly with each step, the sound a stark contrast to the silence that enveloped them. As they entered, the old building creaked underfoot, its floorboards groaning like a weary old man. Dust motes floated in the slanting rays of twilight that seeped through cracked windows, giving the place an otherworldly glow. The smell of aged wood and dried herbs lingered in the air, mingling with the earthy scent of the desert. Bill ran a hand over the rough-hewn counter, feeling the grooves left by countless hands before him. "Ain't much to look at, but it'll do," he said, glancing down at Roger, who stood poised and watchful. Outside, the wind shifted, and the whispers grew louder, swirling around the way station like a ghostly chorus. Bill's heart quickened. He wasn't one to jump at shadows, but something about the sound tugged at his gut. "We're not alone here," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Roger moved closer, his ears perked as he scanned the dim corners of the room, muscles tense and ready. A rustle came from the far end of the building, where a half-open door revealed a darkened room beyond. "Easy, Roger," Bill said, reaching down to scratch the dog behind the ears. "Let's see what's in there." With cautious steps, he approached the door. The wooden frame splintered and worn. He pushed it open slowly, and the hinges let out a mournful creak. as if protesting his intrusion. The room was filled with relics of days gone by, broken furniture, faded maps, and what looked like an old trunk, its surface covered in dust but still sturdy enough to withstand time. Bill's hand hovered over the lock, a curious expression crossing his face. "Ain't no one around to claim this treasure, I reckon," he said, more to himself than to Roger. The dog sat beside him, watchful as ever. As Bill knelt to examine the trunk, the whispers outside swirled anew, more insistent this time, rising and falling like a mournful wind. "What do you want?" Bill asked aloud, his voice steady, though a shiver crawled up his spine. "Show yourself!" But the only answer was the sound of the wind, echoing through the cracks in the walls, swirling around him like a forgotten tale desperate to be told. He glanced back at Roger, who seemed to sense the disturbance in the air. The dog's gaze darted from the trunk to the door, and then back to Bill, as if urging him to heed the unspoken warning. "All right, let's get this thing open," Bill said, taking a deep breath as he fished a knife from his pocket. The blade glinted in the fading light as he worked at the rusty lock. He felt a tug at his gut, a sense that he was on the edge of something larger than himself, something that had been waiting for the right moment to resurface. With a sharp crack, the lock yielded, and the trunk's lid popped open with a groan. Bill peered inside, his heart racing. Nestled among the dusty old blankets and forgotten trinkets was a small leather pouch, its surface worn but intact. He reached in, fingers brushing against the soft leather, and as he lifted it, a rush of wind blew through the room, rattling the windows and sending dust swirling into the air. "Whoa now," Bill said, stumbling back a step, clutching the pouch tightly. Roger barked, a low, urgent sound that vibrated through the air. The whispers crescendoed into a cacophony, swirling around them like a tempest of voices, each one calling out as if desperate to share a secret buried long ago. "Easy, boy," Bill said, trying to calm both Roger and himself. But his heart raced, and he felt the weight of unseen eyes upon him, urging him to listen. Something in the pouch seemed to pulse with energy, a key to an untold mystery just waiting to be uncovered. The air thickened, charged with a promise of revelation, and he could feel the ghosts of the past wrapping around him like a long-lost friend. The shadows in the room danced as the last rays of sunlight slipped below the horizon, and with it, the whispers grew faint but no less urgent. Bill looked at Roger, who stood firm and watchful, and he knew that whatever lay ahead was something that would change everything. "Let's see what you got for us, old friend," he murmured, determination hardening in his chest. With that, the night deepened around them, and the secrets of the way station began to unfurl, beckoning Bill into a world where the past and present entwined, whispering of mysteries yet to be uncovered. Bill's fingers curled tightly around the leather pouch, feeling its texture beneath his calloused skin. The urgency of the night pressed in around him, the whispers still echoing like a ghostly choir, each note tugging at his soul. He took a steadying breath and turned his gaze back to the trunk, his mind racing with the possibilities that lay before him. What had he stumbled upon? He opened the pouch carefully, untying the worn leather thong that held it shut. Inside, he found a collection of odd trinkets, a tarnished silver locket, a handful of old coins, and what appeared to be a small, intricately carved key. The key gleamed with an otherworldly sheen, its metal cold and heavy in his hand. It felt familiar, yet foreign, as if it belonged to a door not yet discovered. "Now, what do you reckon this is for?" Bill mused aloud, holding the key up to the dim light, filtering through the grimy window. Roger cocked his head, his sharp eyes fixated on the key as if he sensed its significance. "Maybe it opens a treasure chest, or a hidden room full of gold." Bill chuckled at his own jest, though a part of him felt the truth of his words. There was an air of mystery surrounding the old way station, and he could almost hear the echoes of the past, whispering tales of fortune and folly. He rose to his feet, tucking the pouch safely into his coat pocket. "Come on, partner. Let's see what else this place has to offer," he said, motioning for Roger to follow. The dog was already alert, his nose twitching as he sniffed the air, sensing the thickening tension that hung like a storm cloud. With a gentle push, Bill stepped out of the trunk room and into the main area of the way station. The wind outside howled, rattling the wooden boards beneath his feet and sending a shiver up his spine. As he moved further into the building, he noticed a series of old portraits lining the walls, their subjects long gone, but their eyes seeming to follow him with a knowing gaze. Each face was etched with lines of hard-lived lives, and Bill couldn't help but wonder what stories they might tell if given the chance. "Seems like we're in the company of ghosts tonight," he said, a lopsided grin spreading across his face. "But I reckon they ain't going to be much help in our search for answers." Roger let out a low growl, his body tense as he stood beside Bill, his instincts sharp as ever. A flicker of movement caught Bill's eye, and he turned to the far corner of the room, where shadows danced like phantoms. He approached cautiously, heart thumping in his chest, as he spotted a wooden cabinet partially hidden behind a dusty curtain. Bill's gut told him it might hold more secrets. "Let's check this out," he said, pulling the curtain aside. The wood was old and cracked, but the cabinet itself seemed sturdy enough. He pulled open the door, and it creaked like a ghost awakening from a long slumber. Inside, he found a collection of old bottles and jars filled with strange liquids, their contents swirling in shades of green and amber. "What in tarnation?" Bill muttered, picking up a bottle with a faded label. The words were barely legible, but he could make out the phrase, "Elixir of Dreams." "Ain't that a fancy name for snake oil?" He chuckled, but as he turned to set the bottle back, Roger began to bark again, a sharp sound that cut through the silence. "What is it, boy?" Bill asked, heart racing as he turned to follow Roger's gaze. The dog was fixated on a small, loose floorboard near the cabinet. There was something about the way Roger stood, his body tense and alert, that sent a chill through Bill. "You think there's something down there?" Bill knelt beside the board and pried it up with his knife. The wood creaked and groaned in protest, but soon enough it popped free, revealing a small hollow beneath. Inside, a dusty scrap of paper lay folded tightly, and Bill reached for it, his fingers trembling slightly. As he unfolded the paper, Roger moved closer, sniffing the air, as if anticipating the secrets it might hold. The faded ink was barely readable, but Bill could make out a map, a crude drawing that hinted at a location not far from the way station. A sense of urgency welled up within him, and he glanced at Roger. "Looks like we got ourselves a treasure hunt, old friend." The dog wagged his tail, seemingly aware of the adventure that lay ahead. Bill's heart raced at the thought of what they might find, but a flicker of doubt crossed his mind. "We best tread carefully, Roger. Something tells me we ain't the first to search for whatever's hidden out there." With a renewed sense of purpose, he tucked the map into his pocket alongside the pouch. "Let's get moving," he urged, moving back towards the door. The wind howled outside, but Bill felt a spark of excitement igniting within him, mingling with the unease that hung thick in the air. He had no idea what awaited him beyond the threshold, but the pull of the unknown was stronger than fear. As they stepped out into the night, the stars above twinkled like 1,000 watchful eyes. The moon bathed the landscape in a silvery glow, illuminating the path ahead. With Roger by his side, Bill felt ready to face whatever mysteries the night held, whether they be from this world or the next. Each step they took echoed the whispers that had drawn him here, leading him deeper into a tale that had yet to be told. A tale of buried keys, forgotten dreams, and the restless spirits that walked the land, eager to share their secrets with those brave enough to listen. The chill of the night air wrapped around Bill like a well-worn blanket, but he welcomed it as a reminder of the task at hand. With the map crumpled in his pocket and Roger at his side, the duo stepped away from the way station, the beam of the moonlight guiding them along the rugged trail that twisted through the sagebrush and gnarled mesquite trees. The distant hills loomed like dark giants, their silhouettes stark against the starlit sky. "Keep your eyes peeled, old fella," Bill said, glancing down at Roger, whose ears perked up at every rustle in the underbrush. "Ain't no telling what might be lurking out here." The dog responded with a low growl, his instincts honed from years of life on the range. Bill felt a swell of pride. Roger was no ordinary mutt. He was a seasoned partner, capable of sensing danger long before it reared its head. With each cautious step, Bill scanned the area, his eyes flickering from shadow to shadow. The soft crunch of gravel underfoot was the only sound breaking the silence, and the night felt charged, as if the very air held its breath. The wind, now a gentle whisper, carried with it a scent of earth and sage, mingling with an undercurrent of something sweeter, almost like the fading memory of blooming wildflowers. Bill reached into his pocket and pulled out the map again, letting the moonlight cast a silver sheen over the worn paper. It was crudely drawn, with a few notable landmarks: a crooked tree, a bend in the river, and what appeared to be a small rock formation resembling a man's face. "Well, ain't that a sight for sore eyes?" He chuckled softly to himself, feeling the weight of the unknown pressing down upon him. "Just beyond that ridge, Roger. If I read this right, we ought to find that formation before long." As they pressed onward, Bill couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The hairs on the back of his neck stood on end, and he stole a glance over his shoulder, half expecting to see a pair of glowing eyes reflecting the moonlight. Nothing stirred behind him, but the sensation remained, like a persistent itch beneath his skin. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of walking, they reached the base of the ridge. The land sloped upward, rocky and uneven, but Bill felt a sense of urgency drive him forward. "Let's see what the old girl has to show us," he said, nodding toward Roger, who was already sniffing intently at the ground. As they climbed, Bill's boots slipped on loose stones, but he steadied himself against a boulder, feeling its cold surface beneath his palm. "Ain't much for fancy footwork, but I'll get there," he muttered, catching his breath. Roger, ever the watchful companion, continued to scout ahead, his nose to the ground. Suddenly the dog stopped, his body tense and alert. "What is it, Roger?" Bill whispered, feeling the electric tension in the air thicken. Roger turned, his gaze fixed on a patch of brush nearby. Bill's heart raced as he approached, the unease curling in his stomach. There, half buried in the dirt, was a weathered wooden box, its corners barely visible beneath the earth and twigs. "By thunder, look at that!" Bill exclaimed, kneeling beside it. He dug carefully around the box, his fingers brushing against the cool, damp earth, and felt the smooth surface of the wood beneath his touch. The box was marked with strange symbols, faded carvings that looked like a mix of letters and runes. Bill's brows furrowed in thought. "What kind of box you reckon this is?" Roger whined softly, stepping closer as if urging him to hurry. "All right, boy, let's see what we got." With a determined tug, Bill managed to lift the box free from its earthen tomb. It was surprisingly heavy, and he could feel a pulse of energy radiating from it, like a heartbeat beneath the wood. "Let's hope there's more than just dust in here." He flipped the latch, and it creaked open, revealing a collection of faded photographs, trinkets, and an old journal, its leather cover cracked and peeling. He picked up the journal first. The pages yellowed and brittle, and began to flip through them. The writing was scrawled in a hurried hand, and as he read, a cold shiver raced down his spine. The entries spoke of a treasure hidden by a settler long ago, a fortune that had been lost to time. The last entry, however, sent a tremor through him. "Beware the spirits that guard the treasure. They awaken when the light of the full moon shines brightest. Only the pure of heart can unlock its secrets." Bill's mind raced. The moon was full tonight, its light dancing across the land, casting shadows that seemed to flicker and move. He exchanged a glance with Roger, who stood nearby, ears perked and eyes alert. "Seems like we ain't alone in this hunt, partner," Bill said, swallowing hard. The implications of the words gnawed at him, a nagging worry that they might be meddling with forces beyond their understanding. Just then, the wind picked up, swirling around them with a sudden ferocity, and a low moan echoed through the canyon. Bill's heart raced as he clutched the journal tightly, feeling the weight of the night pressing in around him. The air grew thick with anticipation, and he could almost hear whispers carried on the wind, fragments of stories left untold, echoing through the canyon like a forgotten song. "Let's head back, Roger," he urged, his voice steady despite the trepidation gnawing at him. We'll figure this out come morning. Ain't no sense in waking up the spirits just yet. With one last glance at the box, he carefully secured the journal inside, deciding to return to the way station where the warmth of a fire awaited them. As they made their way back down the ridge, the feeling of being watched intensified. But Bill held firm, leading Roger along the moonlit path. Each step resonated with the promise of mysteries yet to be unveiled, and the ever-looming question of what lay ahead. The night was alive with the energy of those who had come before, and Bill knew deep down that this was only the beginning of a tale woven with shadows, secrets, and the restless spirits that lingered just beyond the veil. As Bill and Roger made their way back down the rocky slope, the moon hung high above, casting a silvery glow that illuminated the rugged terrain. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of sagebrush and the distant sound of a coyote's lonely howl. Bill's heart drummed a steady beat in his chest, his mind racing with thoughts of the journal's revelations. Darn it, what in tarnation did we just stumble upon? He muttered to himself, glancing over at Roger, who trotted beside him with an alertness that belied his age. The dog's ears were perked and his nose twitched, catching the faintest sense on the breeze. "You got any ideas, old fella?" Roger paused for a moment, casting a knowing glance back toward the ridge, as if weighing the mysteries they had uncovered. Bill felt a swell of appreciation for his canine companion. "You're a good dog, Roger," he said softly. "Better than half the folks I've met." The pair reached the base of the ridge, and Bill spotted the familiar silhouette of the way station against the night sky. It stood like a guardian over the land, a sturdy structure that had weathered countless storms. He could already envision the warmth of the fireplace crackling within, the comforting aroma of coffee brewing, and the safety that came with shelter. Once inside, he lit the lanterns, their flickering light casting dancing shadows across the wooden walls. He set the journal on the table, alongside the box, and poured himself a cup of coffee, relishing the warmth that seeped through the ceramic. Roger settled at his feet, resting his chin on his paws, but his eyes remained watchful. "Let's see what else we can uncover," Bill said, turning his attention back to the journal. The first few entries detailed the settler's life, filled with hard work, determination, and a longing for home. But it was the later pages that intrigued him, filled with frantic scrawls about strange occurrences, disembodied whispers, flickering lights in the distance, and shadows moving in the night. "Seems like this fella got himself into quite the pickle," Bill murmured, his brow furrowing in concentration. He flipped through the brittle pages, the sound of parchment crinkling filling the silence of the room. The final entries described a series of events that culminated in a warning. "The treasure is guarded by those who once sought it. They roam the canyon when the moon is full, seeking to protect what was lost." Bill leaned back in his chair, the weight of the words settling heavily on his shoulders. "Guardians, huh? Guess we best keep our wits about us, Roger." He took a sip of coffee, feeling the warmth spread through him, and then turned his gaze back to the box. He opened it again, examining the contents closely. Among the photographs, he found a small, tarnished key that seemed to shimmer even in the dim light. It was ornate, with intricate designs etched into its surface. "Now what do you make of that?" Bill asked Roger, holding it up for inspection. Roger sniffed the air, his nose twitching with curiosity. "You think it fits somewhere?" Bill pondered, recalling the journal's mention of secrets yet to be unlocked. "Could be it opens something connected to this treasure, or maybe even that box." Bill placed the key back in the box and took another look at the faded photographs. One in particular caught his eye. It depicted a group of settlers standing proudly in front of what appeared to be a makeshift cabin, the same one that had likely been built near the canyon. Bill squinted at the image, tracing the figures with his finger. One man stood apart from the rest, a rugged fellow with a determined look in his eyes. "Could be the settler himself," Bill murmured, intrigued. He noticed something odd in the background of the photograph, a large boulder that looked familiar. "That's got to be the one we saw on the ridge," he exclaimed, excitement bubbling within him. "If we can find that boulder, maybe there's more to uncover." With renewed purpose, Bill stood up, the chair scraping against the wooden floor. He poured a final cup of coffee for the road and grabbed his hat. "We ain't done yet, old boy," he declared to Roger, who stood up, tail wagging in anticipation. "Let's go see what that boulder's hiding." As they stepped back into the night, the moon illuminated their path, casting long shadows that danced along the ground. The air felt charged, as if nature itself held its breath, waiting for them to venture forth. Bill led the way back toward the ridge, the cool breeze whispering secrets in his ear. "Keep your nose sharp, Roger," he instructed, feeling the weight of the key in his pocket. "We're not just looking for rocks tonight, we're on the hunt for answers." With each step, the tension in the air thickened, and the sound of the night grew more pronounced. Crickets chirped, the wind rustled through the sagebrush, and the distant howl of coyotes echoed through the canyon. Bill's heart raced with a mix of excitement and apprehension. When they reached the ridge, he paused, taking in the view of the canyon below, bathed in moonlight. The boulder was just a few yards ahead, its silhouette stark against the night sky. "There it is," he whispered, pointing toward the large rock formation that loomed like a sentinel. "Let's see if there's anything more to this tale." As they approached the boulder, Bill felt the air around them shift, charged with an energy that sent goosebumps prickling along his skin. Roger sniffed the ground, his demeanor alert and vigilant. The dog seemed to sense something, his body tensing as they neared the stone. "Easy, boy," Bill soothed, his heart pounding in his chest. "Whatever's out here, we'll face it together." He reached out to touch the boulder, the cool stone firm beneath his palm. As he did, a sudden chill swept through the air, and a whisper floated on the wind, barely audible but unmistakably present. It was a sound that felt like a warning, or perhaps an invitation. "Guess we ain't alone after all," Bill murmured, glancing at Roger, whose eyes reflected the moonlight, wide and unblinking. "Let's see what you've got for us, old girl." With that, they began their search, feeling the weight of history and the presence of the unknown pressing in around them, ready to unveil the secrets hidden just beneath the surface. The moon hung high in the sky, casting a silvery glow over the rugged terrain as Bill crouched low, scanning the base of the boulder. The stone was laced with cracks and fissures, each one a potential hiding place for whatever secrets lay buried within. Roger, ever the vigilant companion, moved with purpose around the rock, his nose pressed to the ground, snuffling and pawing at the earth as if it held the key to a long-lost treasure. "Easy now, Roger," Bill murmured, his voice low and steady. "Let's not dig ourselves a hole too deep." He chuckled softly, though the tension in his chest remained. There was an unspoken understanding between man and dog, a bond forged through shared experiences and silent fears. Bill shifted his focus to a patch of earth that looked disturbed, as if someone or something had clawed at it long ago. He knelt, brushing aside the loose dirt with his fingers. A glimmer of metal caught his eye, and his heart skipped a beat. He leaned in closer, revealing the edge of another key, much larger than the one he had found in the box. The new key was shaped like a horseshoe, adorned with the same intricate designs, but more elaborate and worn, as if it had been buried for decades. "Now ain't that a sight?" Bill breathed, lifting the key gently from the earth. "What do you reckon this one unlocks?" He glanced at Roger, who had paused in his own investigation, ears perked up, and watching Bill intently. "I reckon we might be onto something real big here." As Bill examined the key, he felt a sudden rush of wind, cooler and sharper than before. The whisper returned, this time more distinct, as if the very rocks were trying to speak to him. It sent a shiver down his spine. "You feel that, Roger? Like the ghosts of old settler folks are breathing down our necks." The dog huffed softly, his gaze darting around, tail still but ears alert. Bill rose slowly, his instincts screaming that they were not alone. He pocketed the key, glancing around the rugged landscape. The canyon, lit by the ethereal glow of the moon, seemed to pulse with an energy that made the hair on his arms stand on end. "Let's see if we can find any more clues," Bill said, forcing himself to take a steady breath. "Maybe there's a latch or a lock on this old boulder." He began to walk around the stone, running his hands over its surface, searching for any signs of man-made markings. The rough texture of the rock felt familiar, yet foreboding, each scrape and crevice holding echoes of the past. His fingertips brushed against a particularly smooth section, a contrast to the rough exterior, and he pressed down hard, half expecting a hidden door to swing open. Suddenly, Roger barked, a sharp sound that shattered the stillness of the night. Bill whipped around, heart racing. "What is it, boy?" He scanned the area, eyes darting to the shadows dancing in the moonlight. Roger stood rigid, staring toward the canyon's edge. Bill followed the dog's gaze and squinted into the distance, where the moonlight barely reached. "Darned if I can see anything," he muttered, feeling a mix of excitement and trepidation. "But something's got your attention." With renewed focus, Bill moved toward the edge of the ridge. The earth dropped off sharply, revealing a narrow path winding downward into the canyon below. "Could be worth a look," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But we gotta be careful. Don't want to tumble down like a sack of potatoes." Roger trotted ahead, his instincts leading him to the edge, where he paused to sniff the air. Bill followed closely, keeping one hand on the boulder for balance. As he peered into the abyss, he felt the ground shift beneath him, an unsettling sensation that sent a jolt of caution through his veins. "Whoa there, let's not get reckless now," Bill said, stepping back. He turned his attention back to the boulder, pondering the key he had uncovered. "There's got to be more to this, and I reckon it's somewhere close." As he examined the base of the boulder once more, he noticed a series of scratches in the rock, forming an almost deliberate pattern. "What in tarnation?" he whispered, tracing the lines with his fingers. The scratches formed a crude shape, resembling a map, or perhaps a series of symbols. "Roger," he called, excitement bubbling within him. "Come take a look at this." The dog trotted back, his nose working overtime as he sniffed around the markings. Bill felt a thrill run through him. "If this ain't a sign, I don't know what is." He carefully etched the shapes into his memory, determined to study them further. Perhaps they were a guide to some hidden treasure or a warning of what lay ahead. "We're onto something, old friend. I can feel it in my bones," he said, straightening up. As they prepared to descend into the canyon, a low rumble echoed in the distance, a sound like thunder that had no clouds to justify it. Bill's heart raced. "What in the world?" "Let's not stick around to find out," he urged Roger, who seemed equally unsettled. With one last glance at the boulder, he made his way toward the narrow path, the thrill of the unknown pulling him forward. The mysteries of the canyon awaited, and he felt a sense of purpose surging within him. "Together, we'll unravel this old tale," he promised, taking a deep breath as they ventured into the darkness, the night alive with possibilities and whispers of the past. As Bill and Roger made their way down the narrow path, the moon hung high in the sky, casting an otherworldly glow on the rugged terrain. The air was crisp, tinged with the scent of sagebrush and damp earth. Each step echoed in the stillness. The only sound accompanying them was the soft crunch of gravel beneath Bill's boots and the occasional rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. "Steady now, Roger," Bill murmured, noting the dog's ears perked high, attuned to the slightest disturbance. "Ain't no telling what might be waiting for us down yonder." "My..." He felt the weight of the key in his pocket, a constant reminder that they were on the cusp of something significant, something that had been buried for ages. The path twisted and turned, leading them deeper into the canyon's embrace. Bill's gaze darted around, taking in the towering cliffs that loomed over them like ancient sentinels. Shadows danced in the crevices, and the wind whispered secrets, almost as if the spirits of the land were urging him onward. After a few minutes of careful descent, they came upon a clearing, a small, flat area that opened up like an oasis amidst the stone. Bill's heart raced as he scanned the ground, searching for any hint of what lay hidden beneath the layers of time. "This here could be a good spot for a treasure," he said, kneeling down to inspect the earth more closely. Roger wandered a few feet ahead, his nose working diligently, tail wagging low but steady. Bill chuckled softly. "You smelling up something good, boy?" The dog paused, glancing back at Bill with a knowing look, then resumed his investigation, sniffing at the base of a large rock. Now, what have we got here? Bill mused, standing up and walking over to Roger. The dog had uncovered a patch of disturbed soil, the earth slightly darker than its surroundings. Bill knelt beside him, feeling a rush of excitement wash over him. This could be it! With his trusty knife, Bill began to scrape away the top layer of dirt, careful not to disturb anything too much. As he worked, he spoke to Roger. "You know, this reminds me of the time Old Man Thompson told me about the lost gold of Coyote Creek. They say it was buried by a gang of outlaws, all but forgotten till now." The more he uncovered, the more the thrill of discovery gripped him. Just then, Roger growled softly, a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through the air. Bill paused, looking up. "What's got your hackles up, boy?" He followed the dog's gaze to a darker shadow against the canyon wall, something that seemed out of place amid the natural rock formations. A knot of unease tightened in Bill's stomach. "We ain't alone," he breathed, instinctively reaching for the handle of the knife tucked at his belt. The shadows flickered, and he squinted to make out the shape. It was a small, weathered box, half buried in the earth, its wooden surface cracked and aged but still intact. "Could be a clue," he said, excitement edging into his voice as he gently pried it from the dirt. The box felt heavy in his hands, and he could see the faded designs carved into the wood, symbols that mirrored the scratches he had seen on the boulder. "Well, I'll be a son of a gun," he muttered, heart racing with the thrill of revelation. As he turned the box over, Roger barked again, a sharp alert that sent chills down Bill's spine. "What is it, Roger?" Bill asked, glancing around. The air felt charged, thick with anticipation, as if the land itself was holding its breath. Suddenly, there was a loud crack like thunder echoing from the cliffs, and the ground beneath them trembled slightly. "We best be moving," Bill said, hastily brushing the dirt off the box. He felt a strange urgency, as if the canyon was warning them that time was of the essence. He fumbled with the latch, which was stubborn and rusted. "Come on, you old relic," he grunted, applying more pressure. Roger stood beside him, watching intently, his ears perked high, alert to every sound. Finally, with a loud creak, the box sprang open, revealing its contents. Inside lay a handful of dusty old coins, their surface glinting faintly in the moonlight, and a small, rolled-up piece of parchment. Bill's heart pounded as he gently lifted the parchment, unfolding it carefully. "What do we have here?" he murmured, eyes scanning the faded ink. A map, it appeared, crudely drawn, but unmistakable in its intent. There were markings that resembled the canyon itself, along with a prominent X, marking a spot deeper within the rocky expanse. "Now we're talking," Bill breathed, his mind racing with possibilities. This could lead us to that lost treasure. The thought ignited a spark of excitement within him. "Roger, we might just be onto something real special here." But just as the thrill of discovery filled the air, another tremor rippled through the ground. Bill steadied himself, feeling the earth shift beneath his feet. "We've got to move, boy," he urged, quickly stuffing the coins and the map into his pocket. As they turned to retrace their steps, the air grew still, heavy with an unnatural silence. Bill's instincts screamed that they were being watched. He glanced over his shoulder, half expecting to see a ghostly figure emerge from the shadows. "What do you reckon, Roger? We're not alone, are we?" The dog growled low again, his body tense, eyes fixed on the depths of the canyon. Bill felt a chill run down his spine, a sense that the past was stirring, ready to reclaim what had been lost. With every fiber of his being, he knew they had to be swift. They were on the brink of unearthing something that had remained buried for far too long. And now, whatever spirits lingered in the canyon were restless, watching, and perhaps even waiting. "Let's go," he said, determination flooding his voice. "We've got a map to follow and no time to waste." With Roger at his side, Bill hurried back up the path, the thrill of adventure propelling them forward while the echoes of the canyon whispered secrets only they could uncover. Bill felt the weight of the map pressing against his chest like a promise, urging him onward as he and Roger navigated the rugged terrain of the canyon. The moon hung high, casting silver shadows that danced along the rocky walls, illuminating their path yet cloaking everything else in darkness. Each step forward felt like a step deeper into the mysteries of a past long forgotten, as if the canyon itself was a keeper of secrets, whispering its tales in a language only the brave dared to decipher. "Stay close now, Roger," Bill muttered, his voice barely above a whisper, the thrill of the night mixing with the creeping unease settling in his gut. The dog, ever vigilant, trotted by his side, nose to the ground, occasionally pausing to sniff the air, ears perked like a hawk on the hunt. Bill could feel Roger's instincts guiding them, a steady reminder that in this wild expanse they were not merely adventurers but intruders in a realm of spirits and shadows. As they made their way through the jagged outcrops, Bill recalled the map's marks. The X had been drawn close to a landmark labeled only as the Widow's Peak. He'd heard tales of that place, how it was said to be haunted by the spirit of a woman who lost everything to the outlaws of Coyote Creek. Could be she's still looking for her gold, he mused aloud, glancing at Roger, who seemed to understand the gravity of his words. The wind howled softly through the canyon, carrying with it a chill that made Bill shiver despite the warmth of his coat. Shadows shifted around them, and he couldn't shake the feeling that unseen eyes were tracking their every move. "We're getting close, I reckon," he said, urging himself to focus on the task ahead, rather than the prickling sensation on the back of his neck. "Let's keep our wits about us." They soon reached a narrow ledge that jutted out over the canyon's depths. The map indicated that the Widow's Peak was just beyond this point, where the land dipped sharply, offering a view that could rival any painting. With careful footing, Bill edged along the ledge, his heart hammering with excitement as he caught sight of the peak rising majestically against the star-studded sky. Roger, sensing the gravity of the moment, pressed closer, his breath coming in soft puffs as he scanned the area. Then, without warning, the dog froze, body rigid, eyes locked onto something in the shadows. "What is it, boy?" Bill asked, voice low and urgent. Suddenly, a sharp, high-pitched whistle echoed through the canyon, a sound that was both haunting and eerie. Bill's blood ran cold. "Did you hear that?" he whispered, feeling a strange compulsion to look deeper into the darkness. The whistle came again, curling around him like a snake, and he felt a pull, as if something was summoning him forward. "Come on, Roger," he said, trying to shake off the feeling of dread. "Let's get a closer look." And as they approached the base of the peak, the moonlight revealed a series of shallow caves dotting the rock face. They looked like the gaping mouths of hungry beasts, ready to swallow any soul brave enough to venture inside. Roger's ears flicked, alert to every sound, and Bill felt a chill creep along his spine. He turned his gaze to the ground, looking for tracks or signs of movement. There were footprints, but they were too faded to tell how long ago they had been made. "Seems like folks been here before us," he murmured, kneeling to inspect them. He noticed something else. A glint of silver caught his eye, half buried in the dirt. Reaching down, he brushed away the loose soil, revealing a tarnished locket, its surface cold and smooth beneath his fingers. "What in tarnation?" he said, turning it over. The locket was engraved with the initials MB, along with a tiny depiction of a woman's face. Could be it belonged to the widow, he pondered, a shiver running through him. As he pocketed the locket, Roger barked sharply, the sound echoing off the canyon walls. "Easy there, partner," Bill said, calming the dog, though his own heart raced. "What's got you so riled up?" Roger backed up slightly, hackles raised as he sniffed the air. Bill followed the dog's gaze and spotted a faint glow emanating from the mouth of one of the caves. "What in the world?" he muttered, squinting to make sense of the flickering light. It danced like a flame, but did not illuminate the space around it. "Maybe it's a lantern," he said, though doubt crept in. "But where's the fella carrying it?" Cautiously, Bill approached the cave entrance, each step heavy with the weight of uncertainty. Roger stayed close, muscles coiled like a rattlesnake ready to strike. As they neared the glow, Bill could feel the air grow thick, almost electric, as if the very fabric of the night was alive with tension. "All right, let's take a gander," he whispered, drawing in a deep breath. He stepped inside, the flickering light growing brighter, illuminating a small alcove. There, in the center, was a stone pedestal, and atop it lay a small key, rusted yet unmistakably significant. It gleamed as though it had been waiting for someone to claim it. Bill's heart raced. Could this be it? He wondered, reaching out. Just as his fingers brushed the cool metal, the glow intensified, enveloping him in warmth and light. Roger whined softly beside him, sensing the shift in the air. "Easy, boy," Bill said, feeling the pulse of something ancient and powerful surrounding them. "We're onto something big." But before he could grasp the key fully, the cave trembled, a low rumble reverberating through the stone walls. The light flickered and dimmed, shadows swirling ominously around them. Bill's instincts screamed danger. "We need to get out, Roger," he shouted, adrenaline surging as he yanked the key from the pedestal. With the ground shaking beneath their feet, he turned to flee, heart racing as he and Roger dashed back through the cave's entrance, the echoes of the canyon now screaming with urgency. Whatever spirits dwelled in this place were restless, and Bill knew they had disturbed something that had lain dormant for too long. "Let's go," he urged, sprinting towards the safety of the open canyon, the key clutched tightly in his fist, the thrill of adventure mingling with the chilling realization that they had only just begun to scratch the surface of the secrets buried in the earth. Bill burst out of the cave, the night air hitting him like a cold bucket of water. Roger darted ahead, his keen senses scanning for any sign of danger, ears perked and tail tucked low. They stopped just short of the rocky outcrop, panting hard, the glow from the cave flickering behind them like a beacon of warning. "All right, boy, we made it out," Bill gasped, his heart still hammering against his ribs. He glanced back toward the cave, its mouth now an inky shadow against the moonlit canyon. "But I reckon we ain't done just yet." The key dangled from his fingers, the metal warm against his palm. It felt like more than just an old piece of iron. It thrummed with a pulse, as if it had its own heartbeat, an echo of the stories hidden in the earth. Bill stared at it, his brow furrowed. "What do you think it opens?" he mused aloud, but Roger merely tilted his head, his intelligence shining through those watchful eyes. Could be a lock on a trunk, or maybe a door to some old cabin. Bill's mind raced as he paced back and forth, trying to weave together the threads of the mystery. "But there's something deeper here, I can feel it. That whistle, the glow. It's like the canyon's trying to tell us something." He crouched low, squinting at the ground, searching for more signs. The moonlight painted the earth in a silvery hue, and he could just make out faint impressions in the dirt. They looked fresh, perhaps from the same feet that had found their way to the cave before him. "Tracks," he murmured, pointing them out to Roger. "Might be worth following." With Roger at his side, Bill followed the trail, weaving through the twisted junipers and scraggly sagebrush. The further they ventured from the cave, the more the wind seemed to carry whispers, secrets swirling like ghosts around them. He could feel the unease thrumming in the air, an electric pulse that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. "Stay sharp, partner," he said, moving slowly, his eyes darting around for any sign of movement. Roger moved with a grace that spoke of his intelligence, sniffing the ground and the air, his instincts guiding him like a compass. After a few minutes, they reached a clearing where the ground was oddly disturbed, as if it had been freshly turned over. Bill dropped to one knee, brushing away the loose dirt with his hands. "What do we have here?" he wondered aloud. It was a patch of earth, darker than the surrounding soil, as if something had been buried there not long ago. He pulled out his pocket knife, the blade glinting in the moonlight. "Let's see what lies beneath." He began to dig, pushing aside the dirt with care, each scoop sending a small shower of earth flying. Roger remained close, eyes trained on the shadows, ears flicking at every sound. With a few more thrusts of his knife, Bill felt the blade scrape against something solid. He paused, his heart racing as he brushed away the last of the dirt to reveal a wooden box, its surface rough and weathered, a faded symbol carved into the lid. "By the looks of it, this here box has seen better days," he said, tracing the design with his fingers. It resembled the same markings he'd seen on the locket. "What do you reckon, boy?" Bill asked, glancing at Roger. "Should we see what's inside?" Roger's response was a soft whine, as if urging him on, and Bill couldn't help but chuckle. "I reckon that's a yes." He worked the lid loose, the wood creaking in protest. With a final tug, it sprang open, revealing a collection of old letters, yellowed with age and tied together with a fraying ribbon. The letters were brittle, as if they had been waiting for someone to uncover their secrets for an eternity. Bill carefully lifted them out, his fingers trembling as he unfolded the top one. The handwriting was elegant, yet shaky, revealing a woman's voice, filled with longing. "To my dearest Michael," it began, "I hope this letter finds you, wherever you may roam. I fear for your safety, and I wish to tell you of a treasure hidden beneath the old sycamore tree." His pulse quickened at the mention of treasure. "Now we're onto something, Roger," he said, glancing at the dog, whose ears perked up at the excitement in Bill's voice. A treasure? This could be why folks have been nosing around these parts. But as he read on, the tone shifted. "Beware the shadows that lurk where you tread. They are restless and angry for what has been taken. Protect yourself and know that the key to your safety lies with the one who holds my heart." Bill frowned, feeling a chill creep up his spine. "What in the world does that mean?" he asked, scanning the other letters, the words weaving a tale of love and despair, of a woman waiting for a man who may never return. He shoved the letters back into the box, his mind racing. "This ain't just about treasure, it's about a story that still breathes." Roger nudged him, sensing the tension. "We need to find that sycamore tree," Bill said, standing up, determination etched on his face. "If there's a key to this mystery, it's buried out there, and I aim to find it." With the key still in his pocket and the box cradled in his arms, Bill set off, following Roger's lead, the moon casting a ghostly light over the path ahead. As they moved deeper into the night, the shadows danced around them, whispering secrets that begged to be uncovered, urging them toward an uncertain destiny. Bill pressed onward, the wooden box cradled against his chest like a fragile treasure, while Roger led the way, his keen instincts guiding them through the night. The pair moved past twisted junipers and sparse clumps of prickly pear, their silhouettes dancing in the moonlight. The air was thick with the scent of sage and the distant echoes of coyotes howling, a reminder that even in the stillness of night, the wilderness was alive and watchful. "Now where do you reckon we'll find that old sycamore?" Bill muttered, his breath forming a mist in the crisp air. He had spent many years roaming these parts, but the thought of a treasure buried under a tree gave him pause. He had seen more than his share of misfortunes over the years, and the notion of unearthing something that had been hidden for so long filled him with equal parts anticipation and trepidation. Roger paused, sniffing the air, his ears pricked as if he had caught a whiff of something out of the ordinary. "What is it, boy?" Bill asked, crouching down beside him. Roger's nose twitched, and he turned to look deeper into the thicket. "Lead on, partner," Bill encouraged, straightening himself and following the dog's lead. They ventured further into the dense underbrush, the moonlight weaving through the branches like threads of silver. As they moved, Bill's mind whirred with thoughts of the letters and the warning about shadows. A chill raced down his spine, and he glanced over his shoulder, half expecting to see something lurking behind them. "Ain't no use looking over your shoulder, Bill," he chided himself. "You're a cowboy, not a coward." Roger paused again, his body tense. Bill held his breath, watching as the dog turned slowly in a circle, sniffing at the ground. "What have you found, boy?" he whispered, crouching down. The dirt around them was soft, as if something had recently disturbed it. Bill's heart thudded in his chest as he knelt beside Roger, who continued to sniff intently at a patch of earth. With a flick of his wrist, Bill brushed aside the loose debris, revealing a small weathered object, a rusted key, its shape almost indistinguishable from the earth around it. "Well, I'll be," Bill muttered, lifting it gently from the ground. The key felt cool and heavy in his palm, and he could make out the faint outline of intricate designs etched into its surface. "This might just be what we're looking for, huh, Roger?" He grinned at the dog, who wagged his tail, as if understanding the gravity of their discovery. "But what does it unlock?" Bill pondered aloud, turning the key over in his hand. Could be the key to that box, but I reckon there's more to this story. He glanced around, searching for any sign of the sycamore tree mentioned in the letters. Come on, boy. Let's find that tree and see what else is hiding in this here wilderness. They continued their trek, Bill's mind racing as he tried to piece together the puzzle of the letters, the key, and the warnings of restless shadows. The woods felt alive, and every rustle of the wind through the leaves seemed to carry whispers of the past. He thought about the woman who had penned those letters, her voice echoing in his mind. What had she been so afraid of? What had her lover taken that left her so troubled? Suddenly, Roger stopped again, ears perked high, and let out a low growl. Bill froze, heart pounding, his instincts kicking in. "What is it, boy?" he whispered, scanning the darkness around them. Then he saw it, a flicker of movement, just at the edge of his vision. A shadow darted between the trees, and a chill ran down his spine. "You see something?" he asked, moving closer to Roger, who was now standing firm, tail erect. Before he could react, a figure stepped into the moonlight. A tall man with a weathered face and dark clothes, his expression shadowed beneath a wide-brimmed hat. Bill's hand instinctively moved to the revolver at his hip. "Hold on there, stranger," he called, voice steady but cautious. What's your business here?" The man raised his hand slowly, a crooked smile breaking across his lips. "Easy now, cowboy. Ain't looking for trouble. Just curious about what brings you out this way." Bill narrowed his eyes, the weight of the key in his pocket suddenly feeling heavier. "Curious, huh? This ain't exactly a place for wanderers. You got a name?" "Name's Eli," the man replied, his voice smooth as silk. "And I reckon you've stumbled onto something worth your time. That old sycamore tree ain't far from here if that's what you're after." Bill exchanged a glance with Roger, who seemed to relax slightly but remained alert. "How do you know about the sycamore?" Bill questioned, a mix of suspicion and intrigue filling his words. Eli chuckled softly, a sound that sent a shiver down Bill's spine. "Let's just say I've heard stories. Stories of lost love and buried secrets. You might be onto something that folks around here prefer to forget." With a quick glance at Roger, Bill felt the weight of the night pressing down on him. "You're speaking in riddles, friend. What do you know about the letters? About the treasure?" Eli stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Sometimes it ain't about the treasure itself, but what it can uncover. You hold a key, don't you?" He nodded towards Bill's hand, still clutching the rusty key. Bill's grip tightened instinctively, suspicion racing through him. "What's it to you?" Eli's eyes gleamed with an unearthly light. "I know where the sycamore stands, and I know the stories that hide beneath its roots. But be warned, cowboy. Some secrets are better left buried." The wind picked up, swirling around them as Bill weighed his options. The night was thick with tension, and the feeling of being watched intensified. He glanced at Roger, who was watching Eli with a mix of curiosity and caution. "Lead the way, then. But you best not be trying to pull a fast one on me." Eli nodded, a knowing smile on his lips as he turned, leading them deeper into the darkness. As they followed, the shadows seemed to stretch and twist, the whispers growing louder, as if the land itself was alive, yearning to reveal its mysteries. Bill could feel the pulse of the night quickening, the air electric with the promise of secrets waiting to be unearthed beneath the ancient sycamore tree. The trio moved through the underbrush, the dense foliage rustling softly as if sharing secrets of its own. Bill kept his eyes fixed on Eli, who seemed to glide through the night with an uncanny ease, his dark attire blending with the shadows. Roger trotted close beside Bill, his keen instincts attuned to every sound, every shift in the wind. The dog's senses were sharper than any man's, and Bill trusted his four-legged companion more than he trusted the stranger leading them. As they progressed, the moonlight filtered through the trees, illuminating patches of wildflowers that swayed gently in the night breeze. Bill took a moment to catch his breath, wiping his brow. "You said you've heard stories," he remarked, his voice steady but laced with curiosity. "What's the tale of that sycamore tree? Why do folks want to forget?" Eli paused, casting a glance over his shoulder. "Long ago, it was a meeting place for lovers, a spot where promises were made under its wide, sheltering branches. But love can twist like a coyote in a trap. When betrayal stepped in, the tree became a witness to heartbreak and loss. He let the words hang in the air, filled with a weight that both intrigued and unsettled Bill. "Sounds like more than just a lost love," Bill replied, his brow furrowing. "Oh, what do you mean by betrayal? Did something happen there?" "Ain't my place to tell it all," Eli said, a smirk creeping onto his face. "But some say the lovers' quarrel ended in tragedy, and the souls of the wronged still linger, trapped in the shadows of that tree. They say it's cursed, that it holds the key to more than just what's buried beneath it." Bill felt a cold shiver dance up his spine. He recalled the letters, the woman's fears of restless shadows, and a piece of the puzzle began to click into place. "So you think the key I found could unlock not just a treasure but something more?" "Could be," Eli replied, his eyes glinting with a knowing glimmer. "Or it could unleash a fate worse than death. You best tread carefully, cowboy." The words hung like a storm cloud, but Bill was determined. They pressed onward, finally catching sight of a gnarled silhouette against the star-speckled sky. The sycamore tree loomed ahead, its massive trunk twisted and ancient, branches stretching out like skeletal fingers. Moonlight pooled at its base, illuminating the earth beneath it, making it look almost inviting, a beacon in the darkness. Roger stopped, sniffing the air, his ears flicking back and forth. He let out a low growl, the sound rumbling deep in his chest. Bill knelt beside his companion, feeling the tension radiate from the dog. "What is it, boy?" he murmured, scanning the area for anything amiss. "Seems our friend is picking up on something," Eli said, stepping closer to the tree. "Might be the spirits restless tonight." Bill felt a chill crawl up his spine. He straightened, shifting his weight, and focused on the sycamore. "We should look for signs, see if we can find where the treasure's buried." "Or what else might be buried?" Eli interjected, his tone serious now. "You want to play with fire, cowboy? You best be ready for the heat." Ignoring Eli's warning, Bill began to circle the tree, searching for any markings or disturbances in the soil. The ground was uneven, with roots snaking above the surface, like the fingers of the past reaching for the present. Roger remained alert, moving cautiously, sniffing the air with purpose. Suddenly, he darted toward a patch of earth that looked slightly disturbed, pawing at it with urgency. "Good boy!" Bill exclaimed, his heart racing as he knelt beside Roger. He brushed aside the leaves and dirt, revealing a small wooden box, its surface adorned with intricate carvings that had long since faded. "Now we're talking." With a cautious hand, he pulled the box free, its wood splintering slightly as he pried it from the ground. He glanced at Eli, who stood back, watching with a bemused smile. "You think that might be what we're looking for?" "Only one way to find out," Eli replied, crossing his arms. "But remember, the key ain't the only thing you'll need. Sometimes it takes more than just metal to unlock what's hidden." With his heart pounding, Bill examined the box. It bore no visible lock, but the carvings were familiar, symbols that echoed the markings on the key in his pocket. "There's something in here," he said, his voice a whisper filled with awe. Eli stepped closer, peering over Bill's shoulder. "Careful now, cowboy. You don't want to unleash what's been locked away for so long." Bill swallowed hard, feeling the weight of Eli's words. He took a breath, steeling himself. "If this is a treasure, I need to see what's inside." With a determined motion, he slid the key from his pocket, its cold metal glinting in the moonlight, and pressed it against the carvings on the box. As he turned the key, a low creak resonated from the box, and the air around them shifted, an electric charge that made the hair on Bill's arms stand on end. The ground trembled slightly beneath their feet, and a deep, haunting whisper echoed from within the tree, as if the shadows themselves were awakening. Bill's heart raced, fear mingling with excitement as he held his breath, wondering what secrets were about to be unveiled. The key clicked into place, and the box let out a soft sigh, as if it had been holding its breath for years. Bill could feel the vibrations of the moment reverberate through him, his pulse quickening with each turn. The lid creaked open, revealing a dark, velvet interior, the kind that felt both inviting and ominous. Roger, ever watchful, stood rigid beside him, ears pricked as he scanned the surroundings, a low growl rumbling in his throat. "Steady now, boy," Bill whispered, more to calm himself than the dog. He peered into the box, his breath catching as he spotted a small, ornate dagger lying nestled within the fabric. Its blade shimmered with an otherworldly light, its hilt wrapped in what appeared to be leather, but it felt almost alive in his hands. Intricate runes were etched along the metal, glowing faintly as he picked it up, sending a thrill racing through him. "What in tarnation?" Eli leaned in closer, squinting at the dagger. "That there ain't no ordinary knife, cowboy. Looks like it's seen more than its fair share of blood and betrayal, but I reckon it might hold the key to whatever's haunting this tree." Bill turned the dagger over, feeling the weight of history settle upon him. "You think this belonged to the lovers?" "Could be," Eli mused, his voice lowered to a conspiratorial hush. "Or maybe it was used to seal their fate. Either way, I'd wager it's tied to the spirits that linger. You got a gut feeling about this?" Bill's brow furrowed as he considered the echoes of the past. "I reckon so. But what do we do with it? It ain't much good just sitting in my pocket. Best find out what it's meant for." "I'd say we give that old sycamore a closer look," Eli suggested, gesturing toward the tree. "Could be the answer lies within its roots." With resolve, Bill stepped closer to the gnarled trunk, dagger in hand. The moonlight cast strange shadows, and the tree seemed to breathe, its bark shifting as if it had a heartbeat. Bill knelt, brushing away leaves and dirt from a large exposed root that twisted toward the earth like a serpent. He could feel the cool, damp soil beneath his fingers, and he couldn't shake the sense that something was waiting to be uncovered. Roger, sensing the urgency in Bill's movements, moved around the tree, sniffing intently, his nose to the ground. Suddenly, he barked sharply, an alert that sent a shiver down Bill's spine. "What is it, boy?" Bill called out, straightening up to see what had caught Roger's attention. The dog stood a few paces away, pawing at the ground beneath another thick root, his growls intensifying. Bill's heart raced as he joined Roger, feeling the hair on the back of his neck stand up. "You think there's more here?" "Could be a whole mess of trouble," Eli replied, casting a wary glance at the tree. "But trouble's what we're looking for, ain't it?" With a renewed sense of purpose, Bill began to dig, using the dagger's tip to pry away the loose earth. The soil was dark and rich, smelling of ancient life and decay. As he worked, he could hear the wind whispering through the leaves above, the sound reminiscent of voices just out of reach. Bill paused, wiping sweat from his brow, and glanced at Eli. "You hear that? Like the whispers of the damned," Eli murmured, eyes narrowing. "It's the spirits, no doubt. They don't take kindly to trespassers." Bill swallowed hard and resumed digging, heart racing with anticipation. He could feel something solid beneath his fingers, the earth yielding to his touch. Suddenly, he struck something hard, a box, like the one he had unearthed before, but larger, more ornate, with symbols that matched those on the dagger. "Here we go!" Bill exclaimed, adrenaline surging through him. He continued to clear the dirt, revealing the box's lid, which was engraved with a beautiful depiction of a heart entwined with thorns. "What do you reckon this is?" "Looks like a treasure chest, but I'd bet my boots it's a curse wrapped in gold," Eli said, shaking his head. "You sure you want to open it? You already got the dagger, and that's no trinket." Bill hesitated, the weight of Eli's words pressing down on him, but curiosity burned brighter than caution. "If this holds the answers we seek, I can't just leave it be. Besides, we got Roger here. He'll keep us safe." Just remember," Eli cautioned, "sometimes the past ain't meant to be unearthed." With a deep breath, Bill took hold of the latch and pressed down. The box creaked open, revealing a collection of old letters, their ink faded but still legible. He pulled one out, the yellowed paper crinkling in his hands. The words were filled with sorrow and longing, tales of love lost and promises broken. A chill ran down his spine as he read the name signed at the bottom. "Amelia." "Amelia," Bill murmured, the name echoing in his mind. This must be the woman from the letters. Roger whined softly, nudging Bill's leg as if urging him to read more. The box held not just letters, but a deeper connection to the past, memories that had been buried alongside the heartache. He rifled through the rest, each letter telling of a love that had defied the odds, but ultimately succumbed to tragedy. Eli leaned in, peering at the papers. "You reckon this is what the key unlocks? The truth of what happened between these folks?" "Maybe," Bill said, excitement coursing through him. "But what about the dagger? It feels like it's meant for more than just stories." A sudden gust of wind swept through the clearing, rustling the leaves and sending a shiver down Bill's spine. Roger stood firm, ears perked, as if sensing an unseen presence. "Let's not linger too long," Eli urged, glancing at the darkening sky. "This place has a way of holding on to its secrets, and I'd rather not find out what else is buried with them." With a newfound sense of urgency, Bill tucked the letters back into the box, along with the dagger, and secured the latch. He felt the weight of history upon him, the air thick with the echoes of lost souls, and for the first time, he understood that uncovering the past might come with a cost. Together, they stepped back from the tree, the air electric with unspoken words and restless spirits. And as they did, Bill couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The night was alive with whispers, and the frontier was about to reveal its secrets, secrets that would forever alter the course of his life. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows that danced between the trees like restless spirits. Bill felt the weight of the box tucked securely under his arm, the metallic coolness of the dagger brushing against his side. The air thickened, as if the world was holding its breath, waiting for something to unfold. He glanced at Eli, who was scanning the woods, his brow furrowed with concern. "Let's make tracks before we're caught in the dark," Eli suggested, his voice low and urgent. He turned, pulling out his lantern, the flickering flame casting a warm glow that danced against the encroaching shadows. "Ain't no telling what kind of company we might attract out here." Roger stood watch, his ears perked and nose twitching, as if he could sense the stirring of spirits just beyond sight. Bill knelt beside him, scratching behind the dog's ears, comforted by the loyal presence. "What do you think, boy? You reckon there's more to this than meets the eye?" Roger whined softly, glancing up at Bill with an intensity that made him feel as though the dog understood far more than he let on. "Guess we'll find out soon enough," Bill murmured. They began to retrace their steps, moving cautiously through the underbrush, the lantern light flickering like a heartbeat in the gathering gloom. As they made their way back toward the path, Bill's mind raced with the possibilities of what lay ahead. The letters spoke of love and loss, but they also hinted at something darker, something that lingered in the air like a storm waiting to break. "Do you think this Amelia could have been part of that cursed tale?" Eli asked, glancing sideways at Bill, his expression a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "Could be," Bill replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "But she felt real, you know, like her spirit still lingers in these woods. We might be poking at a hornet's nest. Better to poke it with a stick than bare hands." Eli chuckled nervously, but the humor didn't quite reach his eyes. "Let's just keep our wits about us." They pressed onward, the moon rising like a silver coin in the sky, illuminating their path. As they approached the clearing where they had first discovered the tree, Roger suddenly stopped, his body tense and alert. He turned toward the thicket, growling softly deep in his throat. "Easy, boy," Bill said, feeling a chill creep up his spine. "What is it?" But before he could finish his thought, the ground beneath them trembled ever so slightly, a low rumble that felt like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Eli stumbled back, nearly dropping the lantern. "What in tarnation was that?" Bill steadied himself, gripping the box tighter. "Don't know, but we best find out." He nudged Roger forward, the dog leading the way with cautious steps. The growls had transformed into a low whimper, and he could feel the tension coiling in the air, like the moments before a thunderstorm. As they ventured deeper into the thicket, they stumbled upon an old crumbling stone structure, half hidden by ivy and creeping vines. It looked like a forgotten chapel, its entrance dark and foreboding. Bill felt a surge of unease, but curiosity pushed him closer. "This ain't no place for a man to tread alone," he muttered under his breath. "Or a dog, for that matter," Eli added, eyes darting around as if the shadows held secrets that could spring to life at any moment. "We should think twice 'fore going in there." Roger, however, seemed unfazed. He padded toward the entrance, sniffing the air as if the place held a scent of familiarity. Bill shared a glance with Eli, their unspoken bond of courage urging them to follow. "If the key's out there somewhere, it might be in there," Bill said, his voice steady despite the knot in his stomach. "All right then," Eli replied, tightening his grip on the lantern. "But if that chapel's got any tricks up its sleeve, you better be ready to hightail it." With Roger leading the way, they stepped into the darkened space, the air cooler and damp against their skin. The lantern's light flickered against the stone walls, revealing faded murals depicting scenes of love and loss, much like the letters Bill had found. He felt a pang of connection to Amelia, a woman whose story had long since been swallowed by time. "Look there!" Eli pointed toward a corner where the floorboards were uneven, the wood warped, as if something lay beneath. "Seems like the kind of place they might hide something precious." Bill approached, his heart racing as he knelt down, brushing aside debris and dust. As he dug, the floor creaked ominously, echoing through the silence. With each scrape of his hands against the wood, he felt the weight of history pressing in around him. Then, just as his fingers brushed against something solid, Roger let out a sharp bark, startling both men. "Easy, Roger," Bill called, his voice echoing off the stone walls. But the dog was fixated on the far end of the chapel, growling low and steady, as if sensing a presence lurking just beyond the shadows. Eli stood up, his eyes wide. "What's he seeing? I can't spot a thing." "Neither can I," Bill replied, heart pounding. He hesitated, caught between the promise of discovery and the very real fear that they were not alone. "Let's be careful. If something is watching us, we best not stick around to find out what it is." With one last glance at the hidden spot where he had felt the solid object beneath the floor, Bill made the decision to retreat. "Let's backtrack. We can come at this again when the sun's up." As they turned to leave, the whispers returned, swirling around them like ghostly echoes, and Roger's growls intensified. Bill felt the weight of unseen eyes upon them, and the sense of urgency quickened his pace. They stepped back into the night, the air thick with unspent tension, knowing they had stumbled upon something deeper than just buried secrets, a reckoning that awaited them under the watchful gaze of the stars. The night air wrapped around Bill and Eli like a heavy blanket as they stepped back from the chapel, Roger leading the way, his senses honed like a finely sharpened knife. The lantern flickered and swayed, casting long dancing shadows that played tricks on the eye. Bill's heart raced, and he could feel the pulse of the earth beneath his boots, as if it too sensed their retreat. "Let's get to a safe spot," Eli said, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting something to follow. "Ain't no telling what's lurking round here." Bill nodded, his mind still racing with thoughts of the hidden object beneath the floorboards and the strange energy that seemed to thrum through the very stones of the chapel. "We'll head back to the ranch. At first light, I'll bring a shovel and some tools. If that key's down there, I want it in my hands." Eli's brow furrowed, his gaze shifting to Roger, who had settled down, ears perked and eyes sharp. "You think that old dog knows something we don't? Seems like he's more than just a mutt." Bill chuckled softly, though the laughter felt strained. "He ain't just any old dog, that's for sure. There's something special about him." He reached down to scratch behind Roger's ears, and the dog leaned into the touch, a low rumble of contentment vibrating through him. "Guess we're in this together, buddy." As they made their way back through the thicket, the trees loomed like silent sentinels, their gnarled branches whispering secrets in the wind. The moon hung high above, illuminating the path ahead but casting deep shadows behind. Bill felt a nagging pull in his gut, as if the very land was urging him to turn back, to leave the mysteries of the night undisturbed. Eli's voice cut through the stillness. "You reckon that chapel's haunted? Old-timers used to tell tales about places like that, where the past don't ever really die." "Could be," Bill replied, his voice low. "But hauntings ain't the only thing that scares me. Secrets have a way of revealing themselves when you least expect them. He glanced back at the chapel, its dark entrance yawning like a mouth ready to swallow them whole. When they reached the edge of the clearing, Roger suddenly stopped, lifting his nose to the wind. The dog's posture shifted, his body taut like a drawn bowstring. Bill followed his gaze and squinted into the darkness but saw nothing. "What is it, boy?" he murmured, feeling a cold knot form in his stomach. Before Eli could ask, Roger bolted off into the brush, his paws pounding against the earth. "Hey, come back!" Bill shouted, instinctively chasing after him, Eli close behind. The lantern swung wildly as they plunged into the thicket, branches snagging at their clothes and skin. Roger's barks echoed through the night, leading them to a small creek that glimmered under the moonlight. The water babbled softly, but Roger had stopped at the water's edge, staring intently at something half buried in the mud. "What have you found, boy?" Bill panted, kneeling beside the dog. There, half submerged, lay a rusted key, its surface slick with mud and grime. Bill's heart leapt and he reached down, pulling it free from the earth's grasp. The key was heavy in his hand, the iron cool against his palm. "Well, I'll be," he breathed, turning it over to inspect the intricate designs etched into its surface. "This must be what we're looking for." Eli leaned closer, his eyes wide. "What do you reckon it opens? The chapel? Or something else? Only one way to find out." Bill pocketed the key, glancing back at Roger, who was now sniffing the ground with a determined air. "You got more up your sleeve, don't you, old fella?" The dog's tail wagged, and he continued to roam the banks of the creek, occasionally stopping to sniff at the underbrush. Bill and Eli exchanged glances, a shared understanding passing between them. They were on the cusp of something bigger than just a treasure hunt. There was a mystery here, one that felt rooted in the very soil beneath their feet. They followed Roger as he led them along the creek, the moonlight illuminating a path of jagged stones and tangled roots. Suddenly, the dog stopped again, his nose twitching as he turned toward a cluster of wildflowers that swayed gently in the evening breeze. Bill crouched down to see what had caught Roger's interest. "Looks like he found something," Eli said, scanning the area. "What's buried in there?" Bill brushed aside the flowers, revealing a small, weathered box, its wood cracked and splintering but still intact. "Well, I'll be," he said, a thrill of excitement coursing through him. "This ain't just a coincidence." He lifted the box carefully, setting it on a flat rock. It was surprisingly light, and he could hear a faint rattle from within. "Let's see what secrets you hold," he murmured, reaching for the latch. But before he could open it, a low growl rumbled from Roger, the dog bristling at something unseen. "What now?" Eli whispered, his eyes darting around the shadows. "This ain't sitting right with me." "Stay close," Bill warned, his heart thumping in his chest. He had a feeling they were about to uncover more than just the contents of an old box. Whatever was haunting this land, whatever secrets lay buried, they were drawing nearer. The night air thickened around them, pressing down with a weight that felt almost alive. Bill's heart raced as he carefully unlatched the weathered box, the sound of the metal clicking open echoing like a whispered promise. He hesitated for just a moment, glancing at Eli, who stood with his breath held, eyes flicking nervously back to the shadows. "Ready?" Bill asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Eli nodded, though a bead of sweat trickled down his brow, glistening in the moonlight. With a steadying breath, Bill lifted the lid. The hinges creaked like a weary old man, revealing a dark velvet interior that cradled a collection of items, each shrouded in mystery. A small leather pouch caught his eye, its surface worn and frayed. "Could be gold nuggets or something," he said, hope rising within him. He reached in, fingers brushing against the pouch, which felt heavier than he expected. As he pulled it out, Roger growled again, low and menacing, his eyes locked on the underbrush, hackles raised. "Easy there, boy," Bill said, sensing the tension in the air. "What's got you spooked?" With the pouch now in hand, Bill carefully opened it. Inside lay a handful of dusty old coins, their surfaces tarnished but still glinting with a faint promise of value. Bill's brow furrowed as he inspected them closer. Ain't much to write home about, but they're not just any old coins, he murmured. These have a mark on them, a brand from the old mining town, Cedar Creek. Cedar Creek, Eli echoed, his voice trembling slightly. I heard stories about that place. Folks said it went under after the mine collapsed, took a bunch of good folks with it. That's right, Bill replied, turning the coins over in his palm. But if they're from Cedar Creek, this box could hold more than just old trinkets. It might lead us to something valuable, or something dangerous. Roger sniffed around the perimeter of the box, then suddenly darted off a few paces, his nose to the ground, tail raised like a flag. What is it, boy? Bill called, following the dog as Eli trailed behind, the lantern swinging in his grip. Roger stopped abruptly at a gnarled tree, its roots twisted like serpents clawing at the earth. He pawed at the ground, his breath coming in quick bursts. Bill knelt beside him, heart pounding with curiosity and trepidation. What are you after, old fella? As he brushed away the leaves and debris, a glint of metal caught his eye. Bill dug deeper, unearthing what looked like another key, this one larger and more ornate than the last. It bore an intricate design similar to the one on the first key, but was unmistakably different, as if it were meant for a more significant lock. Ain't that something? Bill said, holding it up to the moonlight. 2 keys in one night. We're getting somewhere, Eli. Eli knelt beside him, eyes wide. But where do they lead? We've got more questions than answers. I reckon they lead to the past, Bill mused, a chill running down his spine. The kind that ain't ready to be forgotten. Suddenly, Roger growled again, more fiercely this time, and began to back away, his body tense. The hair on Bill's neck prickled as he turned to look in the direction Roger faced. A shadow shifted behind a nearby tree, a silhouette barely discernible in the dim light. Bill's heart raced as he whispered, "Stay close, Eli. We ain't alone." Eli's eyes darted around nervously. "What do you think it is? Some wild animal?" "Could be," Bill said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Or it could be something else entirely." He reached for the lantern, raising it higher, illuminating the surrounding area. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing nothing but the rustling leaves and the gentle sway of the creek. But Roger was still on edge, his growls deepening, and Bill could see the shadows shifting again. "Get ready to run if you have to," he whispered to Eli, who nodded, his eyes fixed on the darkened woods. Then, as if summoned by their unease, a figure stepped into the light, revealing an old man, his face weathered like the bark of an ancient tree. His clothes were tattered, yet he held himself with a haunting grace, as though he belonged to the very earth beneath their feet. "You boys best be careful where you tread," he said, his voice a gravelly whisper that seemed to carry the weight of years. "The past don't take kindly to intruders." Bill felt a chill creep up his spine, but he stood his ground. "Who are you?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The old man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Just a keeper of secrets. You've unearthed things best left buried, son. That key you hold, it opens doors to more than you know." "What do you mean?" Eli interjected, his curiosity piqued despite the fear that gnawed at him. The old man's gaze drifted toward Roger, who stood firm, protective. "That dog of yours, he knows more than you think. Follow him, but beware. Some secrets come with a price." With that, the old man turned and melted back into the shadows, leaving Bill and Eli staring after him, hearts racing with the weight of his words. Roger, still alert, tugged at Bill's sleeve, pulling him back toward the creek, as if urging him to follow the trail they had begun. "What do you reckon he meant?" Eli asked, glancing back into the darkness. "I reckon we've stumbled onto something far more dangerous than gold or silver," Bill replied, gripping the keys tightly in his hand. "But we can't turn back now. Let's see where this leads and keep our eyes peeled for whatever may come." With Roger leading the way, they ventured deeper into the night, the weight of the unknown heavy on their shoulders, and the shadows whispering secrets meant only for those brave enough to seek them out. The night wrapped around Bill and Eli like a heavy blanket, the cool air prickling their skin as they followed Roger down the narrow path beside the creek. The gentle babble of water mingled with the rustle of leaves, creating an eerie symphony that set their hearts racing. Roger, ever alert, led the way with his nose to the ground, moving with a purpose that suggested he sensed something more profound than the boys could grasp. "Keep your wits about you, Eli," Bill said, glancing at the boy, whose wide eyes mirrored the uncertainty flickering within him. "Whatever that old man meant, we're in for a wild ride." Eli nodded, swallowing hard. "Do you think he was telling the truth about the past?" "Truth, lies, or a mix of both," Bill replied, his voice low. "We'll only find out if we keep moving forward. Let's see where Roger takes us." The dog paused suddenly, snuffling at the base of a moss-covered rock. Bill approached, squinting in the dim light, and noticed a faint outline of symbols carved into the stone. "Well, I'll be," he murmured, kneeling down to examine the markings more closely. The shapes were worn, but seemed to depict a series of constellations intertwined with what looked like a map. "Is that a map?" Eli asked, moving closer, his curiosity overcoming his fear. "Looks like it, but it ain't no map I recognize," Bill replied, tracing the lines with a finger. "More like a guide to something hidden. Maybe it connects with the keys we found." Roger barked, breaking their focus, and darted off again, this time toward a thicket of trees that loomed like silent sentinels. "What's got into you, boy?" Bill asked, rising quickly to follow, the weight of the keys clinking softly in his pocket. They pushed through the brush, where the moonlight barely pierced the canopy, and came upon a clearing that took their breath away. In the center stood an ancient stone altar, half buried in the earth, surrounded by wildflowers that glowed silver under the moonlight. The air felt charged, almost electric, as if the ground beneath them held secrets just waiting to be unleashed. "What in tarnation is this place?" Eli whispered, stepping forward, eyes wide, as he took in the sight. "Could be a ritual site," Bill mused, feeling the pulse of something otherworldly in the air. "Or maybe a meeting point for folks long gone." He glanced at Roger, who stood at the edge of the clearing, sniffing the ground intently. "Seems our friend here thinks there's more to find." As Bill approached the altar, he noticed more carvings on the stone surface. They were different from the ones on the rock, more intricate, depicting figures in flowing robes, hands raised to the stars. It was as if they were caught in a dance, celebrating something sacred. "This is something special," he said, turning to Eli. "Whatever happened here, it meant a lot to the people who once roamed these lands." Eli shuffled closer, captivated. "Do you think it's tied to the keys?" Bill nodded, his gut tightening. "Could be. Those keys must unlock something tied to this place." He looked back at Roger, who had wandered a few paces away, peering into a shadowed hollow at the base of an oak tree. "What have you found now, old boy?" Roger's tail wagged with urgency as he whined softly, digging at the earth with his paws. Bill approached cautiously, kneeling beside the dog, his heart racing with anticipation. "What is it, boy?" With a few more determined digs, Roger unearthed a small weathered box, its surface decorated with the same intricate designs as the keys. Bill's breath caught in his throat as he pulled it from the ground, brushing off the dirt. "A box. What do you reckon it holds?" Eli leaned in, eyes gleaming with excitement. "Maybe it's treasure, or maybe it's trouble," Bill cautioned, glancing back at the darkened woods. The feeling of being watched crept over him again, heavier than before. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We best be careful." As he opened the box, the hinges creaked like a whisper on the wind, revealing a collection of old trinkets, a tarnished locket, a rusted compass, and an assortment of strange stones that shimmered like stars. Bill picked up the locket, feeling its cool surface in his palm. It was engraved with the same constellation patterns they'd seen on the rock. "What do you think it all means?" Eli asked, leaning closer, mesmerized. "I reckon it's a part of a bigger puzzle," Bill said, his mind racing with possibilities. "But we still don't know what the keys unlock or what the price might be." Roger sniffed the locket, then turned to the trees, hackles raised, growling low in his throat. Bill's heart dropped as he realized the unease was back. "Something's not right," he said, glancing over his shoulder. "We should head back." "Whatever we've stirred up, I don't want to find out what else lurks in the shadows." Eli's expression turned serious. "You think that old man will come back?" "Maybe," Bill replied, tucking the locket back in the box. "Or maybe it's something worse." With Roger leading the way, they retraced their steps through the clearing, the weight of the night pressing in around them, and the feeling that they were being followed growing stronger with each passing moment. The moon hung high above, casting long shadows that danced like specters as they ventured deeper into the unknown, the mysteries of the past still whispering secrets to the stars. The moonlight filtered through the branches overhead, casting a silvery glow that danced across the forest floor, illuminating their hurried path as Bill, Eli, and Roger made their way back. The air was thick with anticipation and an unease that seemed to pulse with the very heartbeat of the woods around them. Bill felt the weight of the box tucked under his arm, a tangible reminder of the mysteries they had unearthed. "Keep your eyes peeled, Eli," he murmured, his voice low, as they navigated the tangled roots and uneven ground. "We're not out of the woods yet, literally or figuratively." Eli nodded, his gaze darting from shadow to shadow, the thrill of discovery now mingling with a gnawing apprehension. "You think that old man's still lurking about? I reckon he's got a mind to get what he wants," Bill replied, glancing back to see Roger sniffing at a cluster of wildflowers that shone like silver coins in the dark. "But I got a feeling he ain't the only one." Suddenly, Roger raised his head sharply, ears perked, a low growl rumbling deep in his throat. The dog's instincts were honed sharper than a rattlesnake's fangs, and Bill felt a chill race down his spine. "What is it, boy?" He crouched low, placing a hand on Roger's back to steady him. The dog took a hesitant step forward, tail stiff, and sniffed the ground, as if it had revealed a hidden scent. Eli moved closer, curiosity piqued. "What do you see?" "Could be a trail," Bill speculated, his brow furrowing, "or something else entirely." He followed Roger's lead, examining the ground for signs. Sure enough, the earth was disturbed, footprints half buried under fallen leaves and twigs, larger than any he'd seen before. "They ain't ours," Eli whispered, glancing back nervously. "What do you think's been passing through here?" "Only one way to find out," Bill said, his resolve hardening. "Let's see where they lead." With Roger guiding the way, they pushed further into the woods, the shadows growing denser and the sounds of the night more pronounced. The rustle of leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, and the whisper of the wind created a symphony of suspense that wrapped around them like a blanket. Bill's heart raced, not just with the thrill of the hunt, but with the weight of unseen eyes watching from the dark corners of the forest. The footprints wound deeper into the thicket, leading to a gnarled old tree that towered above them like a guardian of secrets. Its roots twisted and turned, digging into the earth as if clutching something hidden beneath. Bill knelt, examining the area. If something was buried here, it's gotta be near. He brushed away the leaves and dirt, revealing a patch of stone that seemed oddly out of place among the natural debris. It was smooth and cool to the touch, and Bill felt a strange energy thrumming beneath his fingertips, as if the very ground was alive with the stories of the past. "Eli," he called softly, "come give me a hand." Eli joined him, kneeling beside the stone. "What do you reckon it is?" "Looks like it could be a marker, or maybe a part of that altar we found," Bill replied, his mind racing with possibilities. "If those keys unlock something special, then this might just be a part of it." With a grunt, he began to dig around the edges, pulling at the roots and rocks. Roger remained alert, circling the tree, his keen eyes scanning the darkness as if he sensed an approaching presence. A rustling sound broke the stillness, and both men froze. Bill's heart raced as he looked at Eli, who wore a face pale with fright. "Did you hear that?" Eli whispered, eyes wide. "Yeah," Bill muttered, his voice steadying against the rising tension. "Stay close." The rustling grew louder, branches snapping like old bones underfoot. Bill rose cautiously, hand resting on the handle of his revolver, ready for whatever might emerge from the shadows. As the sound drew nearer, a figure stepped into the clearing, cloaked in shadows and mystery. It was the old man from the auction, his wild hair and beard illuminated by the moonlight, eyes glinting with an unsettling intelligence. "Well, well," he croaked, a smile creeping across his weathered face. "I see you found more than you bargained for." Bill's grip tightened on his revolver, his instinct screaming that this was no ordinary encounter. "What do you want, old-timer?" he demanded, keeping his voice steady. The man stepped closer, a glint of mischief in his eye. "What I want, young fella, is for you to understand what you've stumbled into. You've awakened things that were long buried, and not all of them are friendly. Then why'd you lead us here?" Eli blurted out, fear and curiosity battling in his tone. "Because sometimes the past needs a little poking to come to light," the old man replied, his voice gravelly like the ground beneath them. "But beware, for there are others who seek what you found. They won't take kindly to intrusions." Bill's heart raced, the weight of the box now feeling like a stone anchor around his neck. "What do you mean? Who else is looking?" The old man leaned closer, his breath a mixture of earth and smoke. "Things that do not belong to this world, boy. They'll be drawn to the keys you hold. The stories you've uncovered are but a whisper compared to the storm that's coming." Roger barked suddenly, breaking the tension like a bolt of lightning, and the old man straightened, casting a wary glance into the trees. "Time's short," he murmured, eyes narrowing. "You best decide what you're gonna do with that box before it decides what to do with you." "Indeed," before Bill could reply, the old man turned and melted back into the shadows, leaving nothing but the echoes of his warning hanging in the air. "Bill," Eli said, his voice trembling, "what do we do now?" Bill looked down at the box, the weight of the secrets inside pressing against his chest. "We figure out what's in this here box and what those keys unlock, but we do it quick, 'cause I got a bad feeling that our troubles are just getting started." As they stood in the darkness, the rustling returned, louder this time, and the feeling of being watched surged back, wrapping around them like a cold embrace. They had entered a world of shadows, and the mysteries of the past were clawing to be set free, ready to unleash whatever lay hidden in the depths of the frontier. The night wrapped around them like a thick blanket, the air heavy with the scent of damp earth and the promise of rain. Bill felt a shiver run down his spine as he scanned the tree line, half expecting the shadows to congeal into something more tangible. Eli, still wide-eyed, clutched his shovel as if it could fend off whatever darkness lingered beyond the moonlight. "Let's not linger, Eli," Bill said, his voice firm but low. "We'll have to work fast, and we'll keep it smart." Roger stayed close, his golden fur bristling as he tilted his head, ears perked for any hint of danger. The old man's words echoed in Bill's mind like a crow's caw, warnings of what they had disturbed. He turned back to the stone patch, kneeling again, his fingers dancing over the cool surface. "If this stone's part of something bigger, we best find out what it connects to," he murmured half to himself. Eli shuffled closer, his brow furrowed with curiosity and concern. "You really think there's more to it? What if that old fella's right? What if we're stirring up a hornet's nest?" Bill nodded, though he didn't like the thought. "Could be. But if we got these keys, then we've got to see what they unlock. Let's dig round this stone real careful-like." With renewed purpose, Bill set to work, using the shovel to scrape away dirt and leaves, revealing more of the stone's surface. Each stroke of the metal felt like a heartbeat, quickening with every revelation. Eli joined him, their breaths mingling with the earthy smell of the ground. "Look here," Eli said, excitement creeping into his tone as he pointed to a series of etchings along the stone. "These markings, do you reckon they mean something?" Bill squinted, wiping sweat from his brow. The markings were crude but unmistakably deliberate, resembling swirling patterns that danced along the edges. "Might be symbols," he said, intrigued. "Could be a map or a clue to where those keys lead." Roger moved to the edge of the clearing, sniffing the air, his instincts sharper than a hawk's talon. He let out a low growl, a warning sound that sent a jolt of unease through Bill. "Easy there, boy," he murmured, glancing toward the trees. "What do you see?" Suddenly, a soft rustling from the bushes made Bill's heart leap. He paused, frozen in place, straining to hear through the night's quiet. The sound of leaves shifting came again, and Roger's growl deepened, his body tense and alert. "Bill," Eli whispered, eyes darting nervously. "What if it's them things the old man was talking about?" "We're about to find out," Bill replied, his voice low and steady. "Stay close and don't make a sound." The air thickened with anticipation as the rustling intensified, and out stepped a shadow, a creature almost as tall as a man, but built like a wild beast. Bill's hand instinctively moved to his revolver, but Roger barked fiercely, making the figure halt in its tracks. "Whoa now, easy there," a voice called out, rough yet familiar. The figure stepped into the moonlight, revealing a dusty, worn face belonging to none other than Caleb, a local rancher known for his tall tales and fondness for whiskey. "Caleb, what in tarnation are you doing here?" Bill exclaimed, heart still racing from the surprise. "I could ask you the same," Caleb said, his eyes flicking nervously between the two men. "Heard there was a ruckus round these parts, and thought I'd come see what kind of trouble you boys were getting into." "Trouble indeed," Bill replied, glancing back at the stone. "We've stumbled on something bigger than we expected. You best stay close and keep your wits about you." Caleb raised an eyebrow, a hint of skepticism coloring his expression. "You mean the old man and his wild stories? You're falling for that nonsense." Eli chimed in. "It ain't nonsense if we're hearing things we can't explain. There's something buried here, and I reckon it's more than just dirt and rock." Caleb squinted, stepping forward to inspect the stone. "Well, if this ain't a marker, then I'm a three-legged mule." Bill's gaze darted between Caleb and Eli, a thought striking him like a bolt from the blue. "Hold on a minute. If this is a marker, then it might lead us somewhere. We ought to check if these etchings line up with anything around here." Eli nodded eagerly, pulling a small notebook from his pocket. "I've seen some old maps in town, ones that show the early trails and landmarks. If we can match these symbols, maybe we can find what the keys unlock." "Then let's get to it," Bill urged, a newfound determination coursing through him. "But we do it quick-like. I don't like the feeling of eyes watching us from the dark." As they began to sketch out the symbols, Roger remained vigilant, pacing around the clearing, his senses attuned to every sound in the night. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it a sense of urgency, a reminder that time was slipping away. The three men worked swiftly, their minds racing, piecing together the fragments of a mystery that seemed to breathe with a life of its own. Each symbol, each mark, felt like a heartbeat against the land, a pulse that echoed the stories buried deep within the earth, waiting for the right moment to rise again. Bill could feel the weight of history pressing down, the air electric with the anticipation of revelation. Whatever lay ahead, they were in for a wild ride, and there was no turning back now. The past was clawing its way to the surface, and soon they would confront whatever shadows had been awakened. The moon hung high, casting a silver glow over the clearing as the three men set to work, their minds racing to decipher the mysteries etched into the stone. Bill crouched low, tracing the swirling patterns with the tip of his finger, feeling the cool, rough surface beneath his touch. "These here lines might be more than just pretty doodles," he muttered deep in thought. "Could be leading us to something buried, a treasure, or a secret long forgotten." Eli scribbled furiously in his notebook, his brow furrowed in concentration. "If we can find the right landmark, we might just unlock whatever it is that's hidden around here, maybe even the old man's keys." He glanced up at Bill, excitement mingling with the tension in the air. "What do you reckon it could be?" "Could be gold, silver, or something worth its weight in stories," Bill replied, glancing toward the darkened woods. The trees loomed like sentinels, shadows flickering in the moonlight. "But we best tread lightly. I ain't too keen on attracting unwelcome attention." Caleb, who was peering over Eli's shoulder, suddenly straightened, his eyes wide with realization. "Hold on a minute. I reckon that swirl there looks an awful lot like the bend in the river just past the old mill. Remember the tales about the lost shipment of gold dust that went missing?" Bill nodded, his heart racing at the thought. "You think this could lead us to it?" "Could be," Caleb replied, a grin spreading across his dusty face. "But it ain't gonna do us no good if we don't get moving before the night swallows us whole." Just then, Roger barked sharply, a low rumble that echoed through the clearing. The dog stood rigid, his ears perked, eyes fixated on the tree line, as if he sensed something lurking just beyond the shadows. Bill felt a chill run down his spine. "What is it, Roger?" he whispered, his voice tight. The dog's growl deepened, a primal warning that sent a shiver through the air. "I don't like this one bit," Eli muttered, shifting uneasily. "Maybe we ought to head back to town and regroup. This place gives me the creeps." "Not yet," Bill said, determination settling in his gut. "We're close to something, I can feel it. If there's treasure to be found, we ain't leaving empty-handed." Caleb nodded, though his eyes darted nervously. "All right, but we best keep our eyes peeled. There's a reason folks avoid these parts after dark." With renewed purpose, the trio moved, following the etchings and Caleb's hunch about the river bend. Roger stayed at the front, his nose to the ground, guiding them through the underbrush with an uncanny sense of direction. The trees closed in around them, the night thick with the sounds of rustling leaves and the distant hoot of an owl, a reminder of the wildness that lay just beyond their reach. As they trekked deeper, Bill's mind raced with possibilities, each footfall echoing the weight of history beneath him. He could almost hear the whispers of the past, tales of fortune and misfortune mingling in the air. "You reckon there's more to the old man's stories than just ghost tales?" he asked, glancing back at his companions. Eli shrugged. "Might be. Folks around here have long memories. Sometimes they don't want the truth to see the light of day." Caleb chuckled darkly. "You mean like that time old Tom Swenson went missing? Folks say he found something he shouldn't have and the shadows took him." "Just stories," Eli said, though his voice lacked conviction. "But this feels different, like we're poking at something that wants to stay buried." "Then let's not keep it waiting," Bill urged, pushing through the foliage until they emerged at the edge of a small clearing, where the moonlight spilled over the ground like silver dust. Before them lay the river, its waters glimmering under the celestial gaze, winding in lazy curves that echoed Caleb's earlier revelation. "Look!" Eli exclaimed, pointing toward the riverbank. "There's a rock formation that matches the etchings." Bill squinted, focusing on the jagged outcropping that jutted out from the earth, its surface weathered by time. "If we're lucky, there might be something hidden beneath." Roger barked again, darting toward the rock, his instincts kicking in. He sniffed eagerly at the base, then pawed at the dirt, his excitement palpable. "That's a good sign, boy," Bill called, his heart racing. As the men approached, the air thickened with anticipation. Bill knelt beside Roger, brushing away the loose earth with his hands, his heart pounding like a drum. He felt a distinct chill, as if the air itself was holding its breath. Just as he dug deeper, his fingers brushed against something cold and metallic. "By the stars," he murmured, unearthing a small, ornate key, its surface engraved with intricate designs similar to those on the stone. "This must be it." Eli's eyes widened. "What do you reckon it unlocks?" Before Bill could answer, a sudden chill swept through the clearing, a gust of wind that seemed to whisper secrets from the past. Roger growled again, his stance shifting as if sensing an unseen presence. "Did you feel that?" Caleb asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Sure did," Bill replied, a knot tightening in his stomach. The night felt heavier now, as if the shadows themselves were watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. "Let's hightail it back," Eli urged, but Bill remained still, the key clasped tightly in his hand. "No," Bill said firmly. "We can't turn back now. We've come too far." With Roger leading the way, they pressed on, each step echoing the heartbeat of the land itself, a reminder that they were not alone. Whatever secrets lay ahead, they would face them together. The past was clawing its way to the surface, and soon enough, they would learn just what it had in store for them. The wind howled softly through the trees, and Bill could feel the weight of history bearing down on him, urging him to press forward. He exchanged glances with Caleb and Eli, their faces illuminated by the moonlight, each man wrestling with his own fears and expectations. "Let's keep moving," Bill urged, determination kindling in his chest. Roger, ever vigilant, led them through the underbrush, his nose twitching and ears perked up, sensing the world around him. As they made their way further down the riverbank, the air seemed to hum with tension, like the moment before a storm breaks. "Bill, you reckon that key might unlock some old chest or a hidden cave?" Caleb asked, glancing at the key that hung from Bill's hand like a talisman. "Could be," Bill replied, but it might just be part of the old man's trickery to keep folks away from this spot. I can't shake the feeling that we're being watched. Like ghosts? Eli scoffed, but his voice trembled slightly. Bill shot him a look. Not ghosts, more like a man's greed. Remember the stories about old Marvick? He was known for hiding his gold and lying about it to keep folks at bay. Caleb nodded slowly. So you think he set this whole thing up? Made up a tale to protect his loot? Sounds about right, Bill said, feeling the knot of understanding tighten. Let's get a look at that rock formation again. Roger's got a nose for the truth. Roger barked as if he understood, guiding them back to the outcropping. The dog sniffed intently, pawing at the ground where the loose soil had been turned over. Bill crouched down again, and as he dug further, he noticed something glimmering beneath the surface. "Help me out here," he said, motioning for Caleb and Eli to join. Together they scraped away the dirt, revealing what looked like the corner of a weathered chest. "By the stars!" Eli exclaimed, his fear giving way to excitement. "That must be it!" As they pulled the chest free, the atmosphere shifted, thick with anticipation. Bill's heart raced, not from fear, but from the thrill of discovery. He glanced at Roger, who stood watch, the muscles in his frame taut with vigilance. "Let's see what's inside," Bill said, and they worked together to pry the chest open. The hinges creaked ominously, revealing a pile of dusty old papers, faded maps, and a few tarnished coins. Bill felt a rush of disappointment, but then noticed something else, an old journal, its cover cracked and worn. He opened it, skimming the pages until he found entries detailing Marvick's exploits, including tales of betrayal and deceit. "Look here," Bill said, his voice low. "Marvick had a partner, someone who knew about the treasure but wanted it all for himself. They had a falling out and the partner was never seen again. Looks like he hid the loot from his own partner." Suddenly the pieces clicked together. "Eli, you said your uncle went missing last summer, right?" Eli nodded, his face paling. "Yeah, but he was always into trouble, always chasing after stories and gold." Bill's brow furrowed. "And what if he was led here? Maybe he ran into someone who wanted the treasure for themselves. Folks say the old man's ghost haunts this place, but what if it's just a cover? A way to scare people away while the real danger lurks in the shadows?" The realization hit like a bullet. The local miners have been keeping quiet about this spot, haven't they? Maybe they know more than they're letting on. Just then, a rustling behind them sent Roger into a low growl. Bill turned, heart pounding, as a figure emerged from the trees. A gaunt man with sunken eyes, his face as familiar as it was haunting. "Marvick!" Bill called, recognizing the old legend in flesh and blood. "You're alive!" The man's eyes darted between the men, panic flickering like a candle in the wind. "You shouldn't be here. You have no idea what you're messing with." "We know enough," Bill replied, stepping forward. "You've been scaring folks away to keep your secrets safe, haven't you? The stories, the ghost tales, they're all to protect your treasure." The man hesitated, fear evident in his demeanor. "It's not what you think. Enough," Bill interrupted, his voice steady. "This isn't your gold anymore. You had your chance, and now you've put innocent folks in danger. You can't keep hiding behind old stories." With Roger at his side, he stepped closer, determination etched in his features. "You need to face what you've done. Those who went missing deserve better than to be forgotten like this." Marvick trembled, the bravado fading from his eyes. "I never meant for it to go this far," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I just wanted to keep what was mine." "Then let's bring this to light," Bill said, gesturing toward Caleb and Eli. "You've got a chance to make it right. Let's turn this chest over to the sheriff." With a resigned nod, Marvick slumped, the fight leaving him as he surrendered to the truth. As dawn broke over the horizon, casting golden light over the river, Bill, Roger, Caleb, and Eli emerged from the woods, the chest in tow. The village would learn the truth, and justice would serve as a reminder that greed and deception could not stand against the bonds of community. With the sun rising behind them, Bill felt a sense of peace settle over him. He looked down at Roger, whose tail wagged in quiet satisfaction. "Looks like we've done a good turn, partner," Bill said, ruffling Roger's fur. And who knows what other adventures await us out there. We'll be ready for them." Roger barked in agreement, and with the dawn illuminating their path, the duo set forth, ready to face whatever the frontier had in store. Together, they would weave their own tales into the fabric of the West, one adventure at a time.